Am I my brother's keeper? Why should I be going into people's business, trying to tell them what they need to do, telling them what you're doing is not right? People have their own privacy, their own confidentiality. They have their own circle. What right do we have to go and barge into their personal life and start telling them who they are and what they need to do? So most of the time we stick to our own lives, our own families, our own work, and that's how life goes on. So the first hurdle is, are we convinced or convicted in our heart that we need to reach out to someone else? And I think that is the first hurdle. So if you are among those who thought, I already have so many things to do in my life, I have my work, I have my family, I have so many others to look after, where on earth do I have time to reach out to someone else? If that is it, then that's our first hurdle that we are going to address. The second hurdle is speaking the truth with love. You see, there was truth both the sides. The Pharisees were asking a question, Master, tell us, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law says that she should be stoned to death. What sayest thou? It's true. I mean, the law said a woman caught in adultery has to be stoned to death. And so the truth is there. And what Jesus was saying was also the truth. The difference was he had the truth with love. So often as Adventists, we know so much that we would love to tell our other brothers and sisters about what they should do, but the tone and the tenor and the attitude with which we do it doesn't really convince anyone, and we don't see any people listening to us or coming on our side. So that's the second hurdle. How do we reach out to people such that there is a transformation in their life and they're willing to step over? The mission that has been given to us is love your God, love your neighbor. So it is a mission, it is a mandate given to us in the same way as it says in the 10 Commandments, love your God, love your neighbor. We have been talking about how do we love our God, and we really love that part. The cross also means of two things. You have a vertical relationship and you have a vertical relationship. As much as worshiping God on a Sabbath hours and spending so much time in church services and doing everything within the church premises is one thing, but if it is not translating into on the horizontal side, if we are not reaching out to people, then we really need to ask ourselves questions. Have we understood things right? The issue always comes between the principle and the person. The law says so. What do we do it? Between law and love. Are these two opposing things? If you want to keep the law, do we kind of miss the love? Or if he loves someone so much that we don't even talk about certain things, how do we balance that? You see, sometimes we as Christians are wonderful in terms of loving God. We do that very well. But when it comes to loving the neighbor, think about a person in your workplace who irritates you, who ticks you off, a neighbor, a relative, or someone in the church, and then God says, go, love that neighbor. How easy it is. And this is where we are going to spend a little while today. Now look at the statistics. 2015, when they asked the smokers to ask them, did you ever want to quit smoking? 68% says yes. Did you attempt to quit? About half of them, 55% said yes, we tried also. How many were successful? 7.5%. That means 93.5 or 92.5% never were successful. Now, this is a statistics of people who have gone through hospitals, doctors, experts in de-addictions and things like that. But at the end of the day, the success rate is 7.5%. What does it speak? It's never easy to make people change in the best of their abilities, specifically from a very secular point of view. What are the reasons? Doctors forget to advise them to quit smoking. Most of them give up giving them advice to quit smoking because they know these fellows are not going to stop smoking. Why waste my time? Might as well give him the other medicines and send them off. But studies have shown that if the doctor tells a patient to quit smoking, it has a significant impact because the physician is telling the patient to quit smoking as compared to anyone else saying it. And yet sometimes doctors do not say it. What about losing weight? Our study shows that the annual probability of attaining normal weight among simple obese people who have a BMI of 30 to 35 among men is 0.5%. So if you are looking at achieving your ideal body weight, at the end of a year, only 0.5% ever achieve that weight. Among men is 0.5, among women is just about 1%. But if a person is very fat, that means a BMI of 40 to 45, the chances that he will lose weight is 0.07% among men and 0.14%. Women seems to do almost double better than men, but yet the best of the effort is just about 0.1%. So we are really talking about people who are so fixed in their minds. To make them change is never an easy work that we are talking about. And yet we are called to go make disciples of the nation. How do we do that? What are the ways to do it? Again, when it comes to weight, people losing 5% is about 40%. And people losing about 10% is 20%. And as I said, achieving the normal weight, it's 0.5%. So that is where our biggest struggle will be, even in lifestyle. That it's easy to tell them what to do. That content is not at all a difficulty, but how to help people change, you have major issues. So I'll be touching a little bit on emotional wellness. You may have heard about the term emotional quotient. We all know about intelligence quotient, how intelligent you are. These days, corporate, when they look for hiring people, they don't look at how brilliant or bright that person is, because most of the time the brilliant and the bright fellows are pain in the neck. They just do their things their way. They do not conform to a system's functioning. So they look for people with a high EQ, emotional quotient, who can get along with people and thereby get the work done. So there's a huge amount of talk about EQs, something that maybe we all need to know. What is EQ? What are the factors that determines EQ? And how to optimize EQ of a person? So when we are looking at a person in a holistic way, you have a physical, mental, social, emotional, and spiritual domains. Physical is the easiest to deal with. And often we do talk about eat this, don't eat that, take water, do walking, sleep in this time. All those things in the physical side it's easily to understandable, maybe easy to follow it to some extent, but we have challenges when we start looking into the emotional part, which determines whether a person is going to change or not. When we talk about intelligence, it is the whole of cognitive or intellectual abilities required to obtain knowledge and to use that knowledge in a good way to solve problems that have a well-described goal and structure. So we need to have certain level of intelligence, and that's what the definition of intelligence is. But the definition of emotional quotient is the capacity of an individual to form harmonious relationships with his or her social and physical environment and to achieve a balanced satisfaction of his or her own drive. Now, you may say, okay, maintaining relationship, what does that have to do with my work? I'm supposed to do certain things. You have to, if you're in a bakery, you have to bake a cake. If you're a doctor, you have to treat the patients, do a surgery well. If you are a nurse, you have to administer. What does this relationship has to do in your primary professions that you are? And that's something that we are going to look into. What is emotional quotient? The word emotion or mover means to move or feel. It's an ability to sense, understand, and effectively apply the power of emotions, often represented by person's emotional intelligence. How do you understand the emotion of a person or the feeling of a person is what is essentially being talked about when you talk about emotional quotient. Sometimes we are so insensitive. We have a mandate agenda and we say that and do that, but we don't even look at the person and know who the person is, what thoughts and feelings are going in, and we do things very insensitively. And emotional quotient is talking about how sensitive we are. The whole concept of EQ was brought in by Daniel Goleman, and the whole EQ concepts and theories and principles are credited to him. And this is how he describes it: the capacity for recognizing our own feelings and those of others. So here it is talking about not just understanding the other person's feeling, sometimes we don't even understand our own feeling. So that also becomes a part of emotional quotient for motivating ourselves and for managing emotions well in ourselves and our relationships. So it is understanding your own self, understanding the other person, and maintaining a relationship. So why EI? There's a growing body of research findings that scientifically demonstrates that emotional intelligence predicts how well we perform at home, school, and workplace. So at the end of the day, you want to know how well a person performs. And here it says that apart from the IQ and whatever knowledge and skills a person has, is the EQ which really determines the output of a person's. Very interesting. Emotional intelligence in higher educations. All of you parents, again, may be interested to know, how do I develop this EQ in my children? As we talked about sleep, this is also a very important thing. It is clear that academic success goes hand in hand with emotional and physical well-being. And this is by the chief of mental health, Harvard University. Address issues that connect with student success. And that's what EQ does, is EQ addresses the scholastic performance of the students, promotes scholastic performances, and prevent antisocial behavior. So if this has to do with the academic performance of the student, then of course we are all interested to know that. This is a new vision for higher educations to generate an empowered learner, an informed learner, and a responsible learner. So you are looking at students who is informed, you have the knowledge, you are empowered, and that basically looking into how efficiently or effectively you communicate, what is his ability to manage change, and how is he able to work in diverse groups. Informed is where you have the knowledge, and responsible has a deep understanding of oneself and respect for the complex identities of others, their histories and their cultures. Sometimes we are very judgmental about people and we look to them in our own paradigm, but we don't see them from the background that they come from, and that is all emotional intelligence is supposed to mean. And there are 5 major components of emotional intelligence. One is emotionally aware of your own self. So emotional self-awareness. Second, managing one's own emotions. So to know what your emotions are. 2, to manage your emotions. 3 is using emotions to maximize intellectual processing and decisions making. You will be surprised to know that your emotions almost determine how you make decisions. Your intelligence says that you should do this, but the emotions can cloud those decisions if you're not in the right emotions. And you can almost recall, when you're angry, you are the poorest decision maker. You make one of the poorest decisions at those times, because those emotions decides even your intelligence and the things that your IQ is supposed to do. Fourthly, developing empathy, that is understanding the other person, and the art of social relationships. So basically it is 2 areas: understanding yourself and managing yourself, understanding the other person and managing those relationships in a simplistic way that we are looking into. It goes through all these steps of self-awareness, of coping skills, of interpersonal skills, and effective relationships, and personal and interpersonal effectiveness. So you're moving from your own self to the other person and all that requires in that whole process. So one of the key things in almost every profession is about communications. I'm sure some of you would have gone through communication workshops where it talks about how do you communicate to the other person. And the whole world is all about communications. We may not be talking to the person in front of you, but we'll be texting with someone who is far away. We are constantly communicating. And looking at the root word communication, what does this word mean? It comes from the Latin word communis, in common. Communis is like communist. What is the communist agenda? The communist agenda is everybody should be same. There should be no rich, no poor, nobody having more or less. Everybody should have the same. So the word communist means it's common. What does common mean is that whatever is in your mind is communicated to the same to the other person's mind. So the prerequisites in communication is 1, there's a messenger, 2, there's a receiver, and there's a message. So these are the key things. So I'm here, the other person is there, and the message is going from one person to the other. To create in the receiver's mind an idea or image which is exactly the same which is in the mind of the messenger. So I don't know whether you have played that whisper voice. You say something in somebody's ear and he says the same word to others. By the end of the whole train, the word is completely changed. I mean, that's communications, whether we are able to create the same image in the other person. How can we make this happen? And the steps are, of course, when we communicate, we speak, we listen, we understand, and there's a change in behavior. So really speaking, our objective at the end of the day is that there should be a change. Whatever I'm saying, if I'm talking about lifestyle to you, you listen to me and you say, very good, very nice lecture. They go home, their life remains the same. I mean, of course, it was not a nice lecture. Because if it was nice because it heard well, it makes sense, and it was so full of statistics and all those emotions, everything together, but it didn't change you, that means I didn't really communicate. So communication means that at the end of the day, if the action is a change in behavior, then you can say that you have actually communicated. So keep that as your goal. You want to share the gospel, share it, but the other person is not accepting it, then that means I have not achieved that goal. It doesn't mean that I don't share and my sharing is not conditional to the other person accepting it. We need to continue to share, but keep it in mind that our goal is still looking for a change in behavior in the other person. And therefore it makes it more dynamic, complex, but comprehensive. Nothing is easy as talking and as difficult as communications. Sometimes we talk good, talk a lot, talk all kinds of things. But communication, if you now try to slowly understand what communication means, is there should be a change in behavior at the other end. Only then you can say you have communicated. So nothing is as easy as talking, as difficult. It's the same thing. Though we are not born with the ability to speak, we are communicating all the times. We cannot not communicate. Now, some of you who are looking at me, I can see in your eyes certain things, and you are communicating. Either you smile, you laugh, you are angry, you are suspicious, you are skeptical, I don't agree with you. I mean, you are communicating all the time. You cannot but not communicate. And here is where we talk about verbal communication and non-verbal. We are communicating all the time. Most of our communications, they say 80% is non-verbal and 20% is verbal. And so we need to use our non-verbal postures to communicate, and we should also read non-verbal from the other person, because when you start saying something and you watch that person and you know, I think he's not listening to me. Most of us, you'll know, he's not listening to me. Then don't speak then. Keep quiet and find out what's going on and what you need to address. You see, non-verbal becomes very important in our communications. And so when we look into the types of communications, the first is intrapersonal communication. There's interpersonal communication. There's communicating in a small group or communicating in a large group. So it's kind of we continue to communicate. So when we look into, so it's very important to understand that the communication first begins with you and your own self. It's only when you understand yourself that you can communicate to the next person. And so what are the things that is involved in your intrapersonal is introspection. Sometimes you need to be quiet in yourselves and look into yourselves and try to understand yourself. Sometimes you need to self-talk or understand oneself. And to be able to understand and accept yourself and to be able to prepare oneself mentally and emotionally is a part of this intrapersonal communications. And this is very critical, that the quality of interpersonal communication depends on the quality of intrapersonal communications. If you have not understood yourself, very less likely you will understand the other person. So we need to spend some time understanding who we are. Now one may say, what's the big deal about understanding your own self? I know my own self, who I am and what I am. But you see, your self consists of these 4 areas. There's an open area which everybody knows. Everybody knows you in that area. There are hidden areas that you don't want people to know, and that is your own personal, private, confidential areas. There are some areas that you also don't know about yourself, and these are called blind areas. And then there are unknown areas that, nobody knows, and it may surface at some point of time. So if you really have to know yourself, what you think you know about yourself is the open areas, and what you may know about yourself is the hidden areas. But the blind areas is something someone else can tell you about yourself, that brother, sister, I think this is something that I have seen in you, and sometimes we feel offended, but then you need to give it importance that the person is seeing something that you have not seen. And humility is where you hear them, understand them, and accept that maybe that area needs to be worked on. So you need to understand yourself in all these areas. These are called areas of human nature. He who knows not and knows not that he knows not is a fool. I wonder whether you understand that. A person who doesn't know himself and he doesn't know that he doesn't know himself is actually a fool. So some of us, we don't know that there's something within ourselves. I don't know that it is there. I think the next one will help you. He who knows not and knows that he knows not is a simpleton. Now, there's something within myself I don't know, and I don't even know that I don't know that. That's one category. The other category is that I know that I do not know. There's something that I don't know, but I know that I don't know. That means he is a person where you can work in him and help him to know the things that he needs to know about himself. There's another one that who knows and knows not that he knows is asleep. Wake him up. So one who knows and knows not that he knows. So that means he needs to be woken up about things that he doesn't know about himself, and he wakes up, he will start knowing about himself. And then finally is he who knows and knows that he knows is a wise man, follow him. If I'm able to confuse you at the end of these 4 steps, it's okay. So basically all that we are saying is that we need to know whether we know about ourselves. The more we know about ourselves, either by your own introspection, one, and second is by the help of people who are close to you. And humility is when you allow people to share about your own self so that you get to know yourself much better and more deeper. If you are able to do that, you will be a very effective communicator. And as I mentioned, that your quality of interpersonal communication depends on your intrapersonal communication. So it's very important that you know yourself. And how do you improve yourself? Some of the verses I would like to share is God paid a high price for you, so don't be enslaved by the world. You need to sometimes see yourself the way God sees. Sometimes we have a very low esteem about ourselves. That is what you think about yourself. But then think about what God thinks about yourself. And if God was willing to give his life for you, then just think about it, how precious you are, that the God of all universe is willing to give his life for you. You are no ordinary person. So we need to see ourselves from the view of God. This we all know. We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them. I saw myself as grasshoppers, and I think they also saw me as grasshoppers. So if you see yourself as grasshoppers, you will behave like grasshoppers. So sometimes we have to stop seeing the way we think, what we feel, and I think that he also may be seeing us with two horns on top as a grasshoppers. I mean, we have to stop seeing ourselves the way we think about ourselves, but we need to go above that. In Christ, Christ has chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which is mighty. Claim these promises in your life. If you think I am not capable, others are very smart, he's fast, they know so much, they do so much, and I'm no one. We need to see again from God's perspective how God sees. He says he has chosen the weak things of the world. If you think you're weak, that's it. God can use you to put the wise. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Sometimes we have to think positively and talk positively. And the more we dwell our minds on those things, some people said, you are what you have in your mind. You eat, you are what you eat. So whatever we eat becomes a part of our body. Whatever we think becomes a part of our mind. Whatever you feed your minds on is what your mind will become. If you think of negative things, you will always look at world negatively. If you think of positive things, think of things that God has given you and blessed you positively, your mind will be positive. If you think of, oh, I can't do this, I don't look like this, I can't think like that, I can't speak like that, I can't sing like that. If we keep thinking about negative things, we will have a very low esteem about ourselves. So sometimes you have to stop seeing from our own perspective and start seeing from God's perspective, and that becomes so very important. And how do I improve myself? Look at it. Your speed of thoughts are about 400 words per minute. Did you imagine that you think at a rate of 400 words per minute? You have a busy mind. I mean, it kind of fires thoughts and ideas constantly. You see, your speed of speech is about 125 words per minute. So you can think at a rate of 400, you can speak at the rate of 125 words. So what should you do? You should think before you talk. And James 1:19 tells us, quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. If you were to speak at the rate of 400 words per minute, whatever comes in your mind and you rattle it off, which sometimes we do it. We just keep on talking. Why? I mean, this mind doesn't stop. It just keeps thinking. It is thinking and getting words at a rate of 400 per minute. Please don't kind of speak out all that comes into your mind. And this is where you need a gap. So what comes in your mind and what you speak, that part has to be given control of someone else, so that whatever you speak is controlled by someone higher than you. And that's why James says, quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. How is the reaction? Sometimes we reverse the whole thing. First we get angry, and then the next thing is we start speaking. And we haven't even listened to him. We haven't even listened the whole story, and before the person has finished, we start rattling it off. So it's very important to improve ourselves in our intrapersonal communications, so that our interpersonal communication is also better. In interpersonal communications, there are two things. There's a formal and informal communications that we have, and the direction is upward, downward, and horizontal. So we need to communicate in these dimensions, and we talk about it. When I talk about groups, there are different stages of groups. I won't be going into details, but just to give you an idea that when we form a group, we have a forming stage. We call people whom we know for a common purpose, and we get the group. There's a norming stage. We kind of get all those things organized, and we start talking, brainstorming. And then once we have brainstormed and decided this is what we want to do, I think your health ministries did that. They had a forming stage. You decided who all should be a part of the health ministries. Then you had a norming stage. Then you brainstorm of various things that can be potentially done over this weekend. And then today we are on the performing stage. So you are doing the things that you're doing, and then there'll be a departing stage. So in a group dynamics, we go through all these stages, and there are important group interactions that happens. Just think about it, reflect about it. Communications at different psychological level, sometimes it's just a conversational, we just talk. Second is it's a factual level, we are talking facts over there. Some conversations can be pretty judgmental. No, this is not right, we should not do that. And others can become very emotional. But what is the ultimate is, we are looking for an interaction which we call it as a peak encounter level. And this is something which is very important. And what is this peak encounter level? Is the deepest level of communication. When you're working with someone, we may just work, get together, do the work, work is over and you depart. But it's not about the work, it's not about the interaction just connected to the work. The deepest level of communication is when you open yourselves, when you understand others, when you maintain confidentiality, when whatever the person has said, you just don't blah blah it to everyone else, but you maintain confidentialities, and you accept others. Sometimes we use the word agree to disagree. The person may be saying some things, I just don't agree, but I don't think so the other person is ready to accept that you don't agree with him, so just leave it. Just agree to disagree, that in my mind I don't agree with it, but let's be friends, let's continue working together. Maybe God's in his own time will show me when I need to bring up that issues and dwell upon it. So we don't have to be in a hurry that we have to set it right immediately. So sometimes you need God's timing and wait upon it. But this is something that we would want you all to work on. Opening ourselves. Sometimes we becomes very formal, and you are there, I am here, let's talk, that's it. You don't ask too many questions, I don't ask you too many questions. What's happening in your life? What is my business? Let's keep away from it. But that's not how God has wanted us. We have to be one in the body of Christ. That means we have to open ourselves. And of course, you may not open yourselves to anyone. There would be people with whom you can confide and you can come. But with the people whom you are close to, these are the things that tells you how your level of communications are, where you are able to open yourselves, you are able to understand, maintain confidentialities and accept the other person. We are called to be bridge builders, and our bridges are built on 3 pillars. One, knowing each other. Knowing is knowing that person and allowing that person also to know you. The second pillar is trusting each other, that I trust you and I maintain that trust with me. And the third is serving each other. When you talk to someone and when you get to know that other person and you also share about yourself, you have got the first step. The next is whatever he has shared, keep it confidential. And the third is serving. Very important, when you are reaching out to people, you maintain that relationship so that at any point of time you hear that someone is in need for something, you are right there at his side to see how you can help them. Because when you have this knowing, trusting and serving, you build up a solid bridge. So the bridge is built over these 3 pillars. And if these 3 pillars are strong, someone said, you can transfer a truckload of gospel across this bridge. Often we are trying to transfer a heavy truckload of gospel over a bridge which was never built. The pillars was not there. What happens? It just collapses. And so if you want to communicate, and if you are planning and intending to communicate something like a gospel, you need to really understand gospel means the person is going to change his entire life. The whole paradigm will shift. You're getting him out of what he has been grown and lived together to make a change, major change of changing from their own faith to a new faith. I mean, you don't do that just like that. It has to be built up on those bridges. It's not just the knowledge. It's just not how correct the whole understanding and doctrine is, but it is something that makes a person trust you, that he's willing to move from where he is to where you would want him to be. So we are called as Christians to be bridge builders. It's only in those bridges built upon these three pillars can you really transfer anything that you want. Sometimes when I talk to my patients and says, okay, you need to make these changes. And when I know I have connected well, the patient is ready to make those changes. When I know I have not connected, next time you don't see him and you see him after a long time and he wouldn't have done anything and his parameters are still way up and all, and then you have to start off. So sometimes if you want people to change, you have to build these three pillars in their lives. Power of listening, very important. Good listening skills are necessary for establishing deeper relationships. Often people say, but people don't listen, or you're not even listening. They get irritated and say, you're not even listening, because sometimes we are all wanting to talk. We want that other person to listen, and we are not willing to listen. And there's something about listening. How do we have a conversations? The best conversations are when you ask open-ended questions. Don't have an interview. Where do you live? How old are you? Which class are you? What is your interest? What is your hobbies? Where do you go? What's the future plans? Sometimes we talk like we are taking an interview. It is what is the suggestions of conversations are ask open-ended questions, broad questions, which is not like an interview, yes or no, or specific answers. Request for clarifications. Sometimes don't interpret, oh, he said like that, that's wrong. No, ask him, oh, did you mean to say that this is what did you mean? So clarify it. Make sure that you heard it right before you jump up for any conclusions. Be attentive. The person can make out whether you are listening. He may be saying, you may be typing and doing, okay. Then you do over there. The person knows that you are not connecting. So be attentive. Summarize what he has said. Paraphrase it. Am I hearing it correct? So what I hear you saying is that you said that 1, 2, 3, 4. You summarize it. So that when you summarize it, the person will hear and say, no, I didn't mean that. It actually meant that. So you have clarified. So communication is all about making sure that you have heard, that you have understood, and understood correctly. And so when you ask open-ended questions, clarify, be attentive, summarize, paraphrase, all those things will make sure that you have got your contents right. Then reflect the feelings. I hear that you are really annoyed at what happened and you are not really feeling good. Is that correct? And when you say that, the other person feels that, yes, this person has understood me. All the time I have been telling people, but people give all kinds of advice. But sometimes when you just say that, I sense that you are really unhappy, really bitter about what happened, and the person suddenly connects. And when they connect it, then start giving your counsel. Don't give a counsel without having made that person feel that you have understood it or you are connecting with it. So reflecting the feelings, be attuned to feelings, ask some probing questions. So these are some of the principles about communications that is usually helpful. And hearing and listening can be, perception is either you can just hear a person, you need to understand that person. So I heard something, but I am trying to understand why this person is so angry about it. Empathize, try to put yourselves in the person's shoes and try to imagine what it means when a person says like that from his or her context. And then finally you have an opportunity to motivate. So the levels of listening can be different. Discriminatory listens, I will try to differentiate this versus that. Comprehensive listening, you're trying to put the things together. Critical listening, I don't think so that is correct, but okay, let me hear it. Appreciative listening, it's good to appreciate a person in the whole conversations. And something that you call it as therapeutic listening. Just because you made yourselves available and gave them the time and allowed them to vent out all that was in the mind, they feel good at it. You may not have given a counsel or a help or a solution to the problem, but just the fact that you listen, they feel good about it. And that is something we call it as therapeutic listening. Often you don't have to come up with solutions. We are more in a hurry to give some solutions, give a Bible reference. Let's pray about it, brother. I mean, why don't you do like this? I don't think so. That was the right thing to do. Do this. We are more often wanting to give a counsel and advice and reference and things like that. But sometimes they just want to be heard. And the other thing which we call as adult communication is sometimes you ask them the solution. You don't give the solution. So, brother, what do you think you would like to do in these situations? And then you start making him think. And when he is thinking and when he comes out with the solutions, most likely that solution will work better than when you offer them a solutions, because you don't have much understanding about the context of what the person is going. And most of the adults sometimes know the answer. They are just looking for someone to listen to them. And then when you ask them, so brother, what do you think is the solution? And he comes with the solution. I think, brother, that's I fully agree with you. I think you should go ahead and do it. Let's pray about it. So sometimes it is important that instead of you volunteering your so-called expert counsels and ideas, it's humbling sometimes to ask the other persons, and sometimes they may surprise you by coming with some thoughts and ideas which may be beyond your understanding. What was Jesus' style of communication? Often Jesus withdrew from the crowd and he wanted to be alone with God. A very important Christian discipline that we need to call. Sometimes when our minds are blurred and clouded and we don't know, just stop and just go in this quietness and be alone with God and let him speak. Knowing God's will through word and prayer is very important, and asking the power of the Holy Spirit for the things that you want to do are the ways that we as Christians should do. Malachi 3:2-3, there was a group of ladies who were doing some Bible study on this portion, and they came across this portion, and as they were studying it, but who can endure the day of his coming, and who can stand when he appears? For he is like a refiner's fire, and like launderer's soap. He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify the sons of Levi and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer to the Lord an offering in righteousness. And they were discussing it, and they say, what is this refiner, purifier of silver? So one of them said, why don't we visit a silversmith and ask, how do they refine silver? And so they said, that's a good idea. So they went and met a silversmith and asked them, how do you refine the silver? So the silver says, okay, fine, sit, I will show you. He took the silver and chose the hottest part of the flame and put the silver in that part. Put the silver in the hottest part of the flame. And then he said, and so just think about it. If you want to refine the silver you're putting in the hottest, if you are going in your life through one of the toughest parts of your life's journey or experience, remember, maybe God is trying to refine you. And then he said, when I put that silver in the hottest part of the fire, my eyes are constantly on the silver, lest I overheat and it melts. So when you're going through the toughest part of your life, God's eye is constantly focused on you, lest things goes beyond what you can bear. And so then this says, I understand. So going through the toughest part of your life is with an intention that you should be purified. Second is God's eyes are constantly on you at times when you're going through the toughest part of your life. And then the ladies asked him, but how do you know that the silver is pure? And so the silversmith smiled and says, that's the best part I like. When I see my face in the silver, I know that it's pure. When people see Jesus in your life, you know that you have gone through the refiner's fire. You have been purified enough such that people are able to see Jesus in your image. And so witnessing is not doing. Witness is being. And sometimes we confuse between doing and being. We are human doings Often we live like that. We live like human doings. We are born to do so many things, and all of us, based on our expertise, we want to do. But we are human beings. God is asking us to be what He wants us to be. And when we are what we need to be, Christ will automatically reflect through our lives. You don't have to do anything. Christ will do. His word says, lift me up and I will draw men to myself. So all that we have to do is lift Jesus up in our life. Let Him be reflected through my life in the way I speak, in the way I deal, in the way I help, the way I know people, the way I trust people, and the way I serve them. When people see that Christ-like nature and word in our life, and Christ is seen through our life, that's all that you need to do. Christ will be seen, and His word says He will draw all men to Him. And that is what witness means, that you just have to be the witness. And when you are the witness, God does the rest of the things. So may God help us as we think about these things, and as we intend intentionally to connect with people, pray to God to show people to you. And when God brings a person to you, ask God, Lord, is this the person? So Lord, now tell me, what do you want me to do? So there's a constant vertical communication that goes on, and as you deal with that situations, and as God guides you through the whole process, you just do what God shows you to do. And as you do it, you'll be surprised the impact, because if God is at work, things has to happen. If I'm at a work, it'll fail. But if God is at work, He's going to accomplish the very purpose that He has started. So may God bless each one of you as we think about these things, as we allow ourselves to be the media of communications between God and men around us. God has called us to be in the gap of between God and man. And as we stand there, things will happen beyond what you can plan and do things. So I stop here, and I'm open for any questions.
Okay, we would like to thank you, Dr. Hanstack, for this presentation this afternoon. It gives us a lot to think about, doesn't it? Now we are open to questions. So we have roaming mics here. You may have a question from last night. You may have a question from this morning. Or you may have a question from what you've just heard. But He is present with us, right? And so it's your opportunity to ask any question that you may have for Him today. And I will also be taking questions from YouTube and Facebook. Just feel free to raise your hand, and a mic will come your way if you have absolutely any question.
Okay, I will start with my question. I've asked it before. Thank you so much, Dr. Hanstack, for coming around. My question is, what is this in the soda that makes us become addicted to it? Because it's hot here. When you drink cold, nice water, you don't feel that it's quenched the thirst. But when you take a cold soda, you drink half of it and you feel, yeah. What is it? And apart from the sugar, we have in Russia this water just with gas, and it does the same effect. You feel you can drink only half of that and you're well. What is this?
Okay, thank you for that question. Little history. Coke Coke or Coca-Cola, as it came, you know what it had? It actually had cocaine. And it was very popular. People will drink it because the cocaine within the Coke was what was causing the addiction, that people were just hooked onto that. And when they later on discovered that cocaine is an addictive substance, narcotic, we can't give it, and that was removed, you know, that was replaced by? That was replaced by sugar, and sugar is almost 5 times more addictive than cocaine. We think cocaine is a bad thing, is a narcotic addictive, but sugar is almost 5 times more addictive than cocaine. And the foods that contain sugar, it creates a kind of a craving and addictions within your own self that you just cannot help but to just look for something sugar. So basically it's the addiction to sugar that creates that craving that I need to have it, and when you have it, you take it and in an amount that is beyond your own control and the limits. So I hope. And then, I mean, soda also has some carbon dioxide which is put under pressure, so when it comes, those bubbles and the sounds, I'm sure all of them works through your systems to create some feeling and a craving for that. So these are all what we call it as a conditioned reflex. So when you see it, if a water is there without any sound, or soft drink without sounds and all, plus with a sound and some bubbles coming up and the taste, it all works in our mind such that we get kind of a hook to it as compared to things which are more healthy. One of the things I say is, anything that is tasty is most probably unhealthy. Anything that doesn't taste that good is most probably healthy. Again, with time, you may shift from the so-called tasty, because taste is a matter of your perception. There's nothing tasty or not so tasty about anything, because it's a matter of something that you have got used to it. In India, we have South and North. In the South, they take less spices. In the North, they take less spices. In the South, they take a lot of spices. So when a North Indian goes to South Indians, they kind of sweat with the food that comes because it's too hot. When a South Indian goes to North, they feel, what a bland food. There isn't enough spices. So if a food had a taste of itself, then everybody should like it. But it is just that what we get conditioned to is what we start liking. And it is that conditioned reflex that we have is what we need to get over. That part is where we need to support people as they are leaving, because the body craves for it and you go back. But if you are able to give them a support at that time and they go over, and then when you get used to the new thing and the healthy thing, then slowly you start liking it, and that becomes a part of your life. So that is the area of behavioral change, that you have to support them as they make changes, because the body will yearn to go back to what they are used to, and you have to keep getting them off from that. And when you are able to get them off, I had a very sweet tooth, to tell you, Brother Edward, I love sweets. And the day when I left it, now when I see something that looks very sweet, I take it. Somehow it doesn't appeal to my tummy now, because now my whole system is changed, and the one that I like now, it doesn't appeal to me. And I'm saying, oh wow, I didn't like it. I thought I should be liking it after taking it, but I don't like it because now my body is changed to the new system. And that's where the behavioral change component comes.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And I will add to this is that our taste buds change every 3 days. Isn't that wonderful? And God gave this this unique quality because I believe He probably knew that we probably would get used to different things. But when they change every 3 days, then we can adjust and start to like something that we didn't like before. Yes, we have another question.
Okay. My question comes back to this presentation, and it has to do with the 4 aspects of ourselves, the open, and I have a question about the blind self. You mentioned that the blind self is the aspect where someone else will see and that we might not see ourselves. Now, my question is, if you see something in someone that they probably don't see because it's in their blind self. How do you let them know without offending them? Because there are aspects in our hidden self that might manifest and others see and we don't see it, but we get offended. So what's a way to deal with that?
Thank you for this very important question. I think this is very fundamental because a blind spot would be something that you may know about a person wants to share. At the same time, you may also want to share about your faith, which is completely new to them. And so one of the ways which I tried to share here was to build up a bridge first. And so once we have built up a bridge, which essentially means when you have built up a trust, when the closest friend comes and tells you and points out some mistakes in you, you don't feel that bad as compared to someone who doesn't know you well and just walks in and tells you something. I said, hello, how on earth did you think that you know so much about me? I mean, we all become very defensive. And so the best way for you to say something to someone and expect them to receive it, you have to do that hard work of building up a trust. And that, the steps are knowing them, trusting them, serving them. And as the Lord shows you that this is a time that He wants you to speak this to the other person, and as you do that, I mean, sensitively and as the Lord leads, you would find that that person is able to take your comments and accept and would be willing to make a change in that areas. So some people said is always put a criticism between two slices of appreciations. I mean, that's the other way to put it. But I would say if this is a very critical thing that you're going to talk to that person, then it's so very important that you should have built up that bridge and build up a relationship and never try to say something to someone where the relationship is not good. If I feel that I have observed something very dramatically wrong on a person, I will try to look for the best friend and try to tell that friend to say, hey, this is what I have observed, this is my feeling. But since I don't know that person, I'm a little kind of unsure about talking that. If you would feel, would you like to talk about these? Or maybe first find out from that person that if this is what I'm perceiving is correct, then maybe you may be the best person to talk about it. So I would say is without relationship, speaking can be very, very kind of detrimental. It can have repercussions on the negative side. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions from the audience?
Doctor, thank you so much for the wisdom that you have shared for us. I have a question, Doctor, but before the question, I just realized that you have shared the different kinds of listening. And one thing that struck me the most was the therapeutic listening. I just realized, Doctor, that God really wants us to be healed therapeutically. Like when we pray, you mentioned the deepest level of communication is when we open up. So when we pray, it's like we are opening up to God, and we don't realize that we just want to be heard by God. So for me, I think prayer is really therapeutic at the same time. And we have the best healer, our God in heaven. My question, Doctor, is I am finding it really difficult to sleep. I want to sleep early, but I sleep early in the morning. Really, Doctor. And I'm really challenged. Doctor, is taking melatonin tablets okay? And what can you advise, Doctor? Because I'm really finding it difficult to sleep.
Okay. Thank you for that question. We just have to remember one thing, that sleep itself is not a disease, I mean, in our medical terms. It's a symptom of an underlying problem. And the underlying issue can be in any part of our lifestyle. And that becomes a little detailed evaluations where you have to sit down. I mean, it's difficult to give you a prescription of how to sleep well. I have attempted to give that in my slides, but really speaking, that's not it. The issue is that I need to know a person in more details in every aspect, and the reason for a particular symptom would be lying somewhere in a particular area or multiple areas, and we need to start working on each of those areas slowly, so that over a period of time, whatever seems to be hindering that sleep would be addressed. So very broadly, I would say that it can fall into any of these four areas of physical, mental, social, and spiritual. And so in physical, all the new start laws are there. Mentally, if there's anything that is bothering you, socially, if there are issues of relationships with anyone, and spiritually, if there's anything that you feel you are struggling in that spiritual area with God, all those things needs to be sat down and reflected and figured out which all areas you think there are issues. And as you identify that, you can slowly start working on each of them one by one over a period of time. And as all those things starts getting restored back to its right balance, then hopefully with that, the sleep also will be taken care. So there's no direct prescriptions that's what we do in medicine. You have blood pressure problem, I have a BP medicines. You have sugar, I have a sugar pill. We have practiced medicine in a way which is completely away from the message that has been given to us. So similarly for sleep, I think it's a very comprehensive thing that we need to go through it in details. And maybe I have not covered all the areas. I have just covered some amount of things in nutrition, some amount in sleep, but exercise, water, all the new start areas are some things that all of you can make a log and look and make your own checklist to see in each of these areas where do you stand. And as you see that you are deficient in specific areas, as you keep settling it over there, because it takes time. Say for example for sleep, if I'm used to sleeping at 12 o'clock every night, you get into a bed at 10 o'clock and the sleep doesn't come till it's 12 and then you start sleeping. So it's something that you have to look into it. Okay, instead of 12, let me sleep at 11 and do all the other things that we talked about. Eat light, don't avoid screens and all those things. And if there are any stresses or anything, sort it out, talk it out, and then try to begin your journey from 12 to 11, from 11 to 10, 10 if you want to bring it to 9. You have to do it gradually over a period of time. And what most of the studies have shown that anything you do for 21 days or 3 weeks becomes a habit. So you put up an alarm at 4 o'clock, you wake up at 4 o'clock, after 5-6 days you'll find your eyes are open, alarm has not rung, it's 4 o'clock. So you see you're resetting your biological rhythm. And similarly for everything you can reset your body, because if the body is used to doing a particular thing for a long period of time, it doesn't change immediately, but just that you have to be disciplined to keep doing it over a period of time, sustain it, don't backslide. And if you're successful in doing it for 3 weeks, you'll find your system has changed and you're automatically doing things without any assistance. It's just happening as a part of your body's own rhythm.
Thank you, Doctor. We do have one question from online. You mentioned that physical and mental repairs happen when we sleep during the night. Is it the same during the day if we have the same hours of sleep?
Just one more time, sorry.
Yes. You mentioned that physical repairs happen and also mental repairs happen when we sleep during the night. Will the same type of repair happen if we sleep during the same hours, the same amount of hours during the day?
Thank you for that question. I think as we look into the physiology, our brain is tuned to the light and day. So when the light comes down and the night dark comes up, it's the melatonin that goes up. So it's when the melatonin goes up and you get a sleep, is all the repair happens at its optimum levels. So if you want to have the best effect of the sleep on the repairs, it usually happens in the night time because that's how our body's circadian rhythm is made. So, I mean, you may still get some repair happening, but not the optimum, the way the body is tuned to.
Okay. So what does that, how does that relate to people who are night workers?
There are a lot of studies on night workers, and all these studies shows that they do suffer a lot of health issues. So, as somebody was asking me is, so how do I do it? I perform the best in the night. I mean, I have also studied in the night. The whole night you study because it's quiet, no one to disturb, you really do well, and your body gets used to it. So we can train our body to do anything. So that doesn't mean that that is the right thing, and often it doesn't sustain for a long. At some point of time, your body will break down. So because you are able to do does not mean that it is okay to do or your body is able to do or that is the right thing to do. It's only with time that our system starts breaking away. Simple example is somebody who smokes for 20 or 30 years, he'll develop a cancer after 20 or 30 years. So somebody will ask, but I was smoking, I didn't have anything. Why you are saying that it is because of smoking that this happened? It's just because the body tries to counter its ill effect over all those years, and when it is not able to do it, when it goes decompensates, as we call it, and they develop disease. So if I can eat sweet and I don't feel any problem, it doesn't mean that sweet is good for me. Now I have stopped eating sweets. The day I eat sweet, I have a severe gastritis. Sugar is supposed to be irritant to the stomach. And so when I take it, I have severe bloating. Why? I have stopped eating it, and now my body is used to the new. Now I do it, I know the effect of that. But if I keep taking sugars, my body gets used to it and I don't have any reaction. That does not mean that sugar is okay for me. So that is the usual argument which is there. So if I'm a night worker and I'm sleeping in the daytime, body will be able to manage it. It doesn't show immediately of any ill effects. But then later on, if I continue to do that, because what happens is these shift workers, we call it as shift workers, sometimes you are sleeping in the morning, then you're sleeping in the evening, then you're sleeping in the night time. And so your biological rhythm is completely messed up. And so all the effects of sleep that we talked about does get affected. It may not be 100% affected because your body will somehow manage to function despite all those things. And that functioning is not an indication to say that this is okay for me. But short of not having any other alternatives, we kind of do off. But at some point of time in our life, we may need to decide that, okay, I need to think about some alternative ways or better ways of catching up. So even if you got sleep for certain days in a normal rhythm cycle, maybe a little compensation for whatever you have done odd on the other days, but nothing like having a regular cycle of our lifestyle.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Okay, I was going to say if we'll go to me first. And go right ahead, please, with your question.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I just want to, I don't know whether I want to ask, I want to comment, or I want to lament. But first of all, I want to say that we are so many in UAE that are night runners like this one. Because the nature of most of us, you come back home maybe past 10. After you come back home past 10, you will shower, you will nibble something. I mean, it's past midnight. And then 5 a.m. you are up again. And then some of our work is so tiring that some of us, we come back home, we go straight to bed. We can even go to bed with our shoes on, and we sleep like dead ghosts. So I think we need a special prayer for God to bring harmony in our life. some kind of supernatural harmony that only God can create. And then again, I wanted to ask if, if I sleep past midnight, like some of us and even some of the children that I sit with here, past midnight, and then in the afternoon by 3, they will sleep again up to 5. Is that okay?
So you're asking is whether we compensate it at another time, is that okay? So here is what I would say is, now you have seen the different health laws as given, and sometimes we are able to follow certain things. Some things are completely out of our hands for logistic reasons, for survival reasons, for supporting family reasons, and so it just may not be in our hands on certain things. So my advice would be is try to maximize those things which is in your hands. In a sense, eat right, have water, do exercise, again within the logistics which is there, so that if there's something that you are not able to do for obvious reasons, some compensation may happen for that. Now, I can't be advising people, please quit that job and take a job where you come home at 6 o'clock and sleep at 9 o'clock. That will be completely unrealistic. But short of that, if you say, for example, if you're coming home by 10 o'clock, then you may plan out your diet such that you have your breakfast, you have your lunch, and have your early dinner while you're still at work, so that when you come home, there's nothing cooking or eating, you can straight away go to rest. So within the normal, because each one of you will have to customize it according to what your work schedule is to the best possibilities. But if out of 8 things, there are 6 things which is in your hand or 5 things which is in your hand, let's do those things fully. And the ones that is not in your hands to do it, you may just have to do it right on the days when you are able to do it. The other days you are not able to do it. So hopefully these other things that you are doing right will be able to some extent, will be able to compensate for the things that you are not able to do. So none of us may live in ideal situations where we may have luxury of doing all of it. Some days we also work late night, and there are some things as a deadline that you have to work. Jesus also was praying the whole night. So by sleep rules and all, he was also breaking the laws. Let's not see it from that perspective. I would say is, these are some things that you may need to, as stewards, you may need to work out the best possible in the given situations that you have. And God is there to understand and compensate for things which is not in your hands. And I feel God's grace is there, so that if you have done to the best of your ability, God will keep you healthy and keep your health intact, because He knows your heart, He knows your intentions, and you have done whatever you could do to the best of your abilities. So I won't be very judgmental about what you are not able to do, but there are different areas that we can do. Let us try to maximize those things.
My question is also on sleep. Now, for me, the ideal sleep condition is in a dark room. But I have come across people who prefer light. And so for them to fall asleep in the dark is very difficult. And my question is, what kind of long-term effect would that have on an individual if they prefer to sleep with the TV on or lights on or something like that? And what could be the cause of that kind of adaptation?
So as I mentioned, it affects, it's very interesting in our body that each thing affects almost every other thing. So it's not like this has an effect of that. It kind of affects almost every other things, and that is what we are discovering about every food. And these days people talk a lot about vitamin D, and as more and more research are being done, we knew vitamin D as a hormone for our bones and our muscles. It makes us strong, but study shows that it is good even for preventing infections. It also prevents cancers. It also gives you good sleep. So we suddenly realize that, let me put it this way, that God in your body has given you enough of mechanisms and counter mechanisms. Like, our media guys will be there, they'll put up a systems and they'll have one backup system that if this fails, that will come up. If that fails, then you have another backup. So in our body, we have a lot of backup systems. So when we do a particular thing, that's how it functions. But if I'm not able to do, we have a lot of backup systems which takes over and takes care of it. The thing would be is you don't want to exhaust all your backup system in just about something that you could do normally. And if you didn't do that, something that you could do, then you are exhausting your backup system so that somewhere your body will kind of fail to cope up with your health and disease. So here the question is that every organ functions at a 20% of its ability, and 80% is there as a backup. And that's why even when we abuse our body knowingly, intentionally, we still are able to carry our day's life because of those reserve which is there. But it will be very foolish for us to completely run out of every reserve that is left and land up in situations where we are not left with any reserve, and then we start facing various kinds of diseases. So with regard to light and sleep, the light will, as it affects the sleep will have its effect on different aspects, as I mentioned, from the brain functions to the health functions to infections to cancers to all those kinds of disease that it can potentially do. If I have a difficulty in one areas like sleeping in the dark, I can't sleep, I need light. One can still try to slowly, if it is bright light, make it dim, more dimmer, and then slowly try to get it off. One can still attempt to create a dark environment and see if a person is able to sleep. That's the ideal. And for any reasons one is not able to sleep still and needs some light, then do all other things that a person has, so that in some way the effect of the light on the sleep can be countered by other things which are a part of our lifestyle parameters. And that's how I would see, is because in medicine we wish I have a one-on-one connections, but we don't see it. It's a very complex connections. So it's a complex thing that causes a given disease and not one thing causing the other thing. And so if I am not able to control one thing, let's control the other things.
Thank you. Do we have any other? We have another question from the floor. Go right ahead.
Yeah. Mine is short, and it's quite short, because I do have, from experience, 2 daughters. And my first daughter, from the right at birth, her weight was out of the graph, as of she was big and heavy. And she maintained that all through. She's now 18. And she's never changed from that, if I can call it BMI ratio. And she's been always out as of fat. And the other one is completely opposite. Now, my main thing is, and I need to ask, is that can somebody be fat and healthy? Because we are all looking at this thing of cutting down weight. But here is a case whereby I can say I'm fat, and I'm quite active with exercise and everything. Can I be fat and healthy?
Thank you for that question. So I think a lot of research and studies on fat and fat cells. There are different types of fat cells which are good and which is bad. And some people have also coined the term happy fat, happy obesity. So that means you can be fat and still be healthy and don't cause disease. But that has not really worked out the way we would have thought, that some fat can be good. So this is not a very clear area. So here what we are saying is, as much as possible, a person should try to reduce weight, because if one doesn't have any problem now, can develop problems later on, and that is seen. Some people are lucky, may never develop problems. We do see, the number of people who develop cancer after smoking is hardly 15 to 20%. So that means 80% who smoke never develop cancer. A person who drinks alcohol will again develop liver cirrhosis only in 15%. That means 85% who drinks will never develop. And so somebody will say, oh, my father I know, my grandfather I know, they lived the whole life, they drank the whole life, they were merry and happy and nothing happens. How on earth you are saying that they will develop liver problem? So they don't believe it because they've seen people living with all those things not happening. So essentially saying is that somebody's body may be strong enough to be able to counter the effect of whatever other things are happening and may never develop it, lucky for them. But we know for sure scientifically that we use a term that your risk of developing is there. That means it's not that you will develop, but the risk is there. So that means if you reduce it, you're reducing the risk of developing complications of obesity or increased weight. That means obesity does cause high blood pressure, sugars, dyslipidemia, heart problem, sleep disturbances, breathing disturbances, and all those things are described. And it is not 100% will develop, but your chances are high. So it's like if you have to walk on the edge of the road where you have chances of toppling over the cliff and falling down, the question is why walk on the edge? If there is a way to be on a safer side, why not be on the safer side? Because if tomorrow you fall off, somebody will say because you are living on the edge. So if you develop a disease, then immediately the attribution will come, oh, that's because you are obese. But if you never developed it, that is again a chance. You may develop, you may not develop. But this is about living in the edge and saying that, can I do this? Is there any problem with that? So my answer would be is live on a safe side. And the safe side is to live with a normal BMI so that any chances of you developing any other problems, at least you have taken care. You may develop some other problem that nobody is in control of, but at least something that I know of, I make a decisions and I keep myself on the safe side rather than living on edge and hoping that I'll fall in that 80% group and not develop some disease. You understand what I'm trying to say? So these are again statistics, and statistics are not 100%. But it is clear that people who have normal weight as compared to high obese side has a higher risk of certain diseases. And those are again statistical numbers. So safest would be is to be on something that you know doesn't, if you're on this side, you will not, most of the time you will not develop those diseases which is associated with high weight. And so if you're on this side, at least you are taking care of them not developing it.
Thank you. We have another question. Can you please explain one more time the connection between ghrelin and leptin in relation to sleep?
Okay. What ghrelin does is, when you are empty stomach, the ghrelin goes up and it triggers off your appetite to eat. When you eat it, the ghrelin levels comes down, the leptin goes up. So leptin is basically a hormone which gives you satiety. And ghrelin is something that makes you hungry. So when we do not sleep, the levels of ghrelin goes up, you feel hungry, you eat more and you put on weight. As compared to those who are sleeping in time, their ghrelin levels are low and leptin is high. They are satiety, that means they don't feel hungry and they don't snack or overfeed and put on weight.
So that's the reason why sleep helps to curb the appetite.
That's
because
true.
of the hormone levels.
That's true.
Thank
That's
you so much. Well, we are going to wrap it up. If there are any more questions, you have your opportunity now to ask the doctor. Okay. Well, we'd like to thank you so much, Dr. Hansdeck, for your for coming and blessing us. And we'll just have the program continue as planned.
Towards the end, I just want to share one more thing. Just one story. We had about a 130 kg lady who came to us, referred to us from the surgery department. They said, we want to stabilize her before they will go for a surgery for obesity. And while she was with us, we started working on her lifestyle. And within a week or 10 days, she lost about 10 kgs. I mean, we had never seen such weight loss, 10 kgs within a week's time. And she was also surprised, we were also surprised. And then she continued on and she lost more weight, so much so that she never needed surgery. And so she would come for our OPDs regularly. We were doing some classes for some of our patients on lifestyle. And one day when she came, I said, let me do something different. Let's ask this lady to take a class. I mean, why should we take a class? We are anyway good, fine, we look healthy, we are not overweight. And sometimes patients don't connect with you because you look so fit that you already sign up for this fellow. I mean, they are fit and all. It's so easy for them to talk about healthy. They don't understand what I'm going through. So we asked that lady, would you like to take a class for them? She said, no. I said, why not? No. So I didn't understand, so made her sit down. I said, look, I mean, if you go and speak and give your life testimony, they'll be so encouraged. So she said, no. I said, may I ask the reason why you don't want to take a class? She said, I gained 2 kgs in last 1 week. So she was feeling very guilty about it. I said, you are the person to take a class. She looked at me, why? I said, look, never always share your success stories. When you share your success stories, people think, oh, that is a good success for you, but you don't know what I go through and how miserable my life is. I've tried it and I've failed. I said it's important to share your failures to the people. When you share your failures, they will be motivated. They can feel that, yes, I connect over there. And so then she thought about it. Really? I said, yes, please come and share. So then she went over there, and when she stood up over there, you could see the eyes of all the people who were like, I mean, they had seen us taking classes, but seeing a patient over there, everybody was interested. No, we want to hear her. We want to hear her story. How did you do it? We are all struggling to do it. And they heard her, and she shared her success story. She shared her failures, what happened in the last 2 weeks. And then she really gave a very motivational speech to say, you can do it. We did it. And you could see the expression on the face of the people as they were listening. So what is most important is, if you are planning to do some lifestyle for yourself, here is what I'll say is, don't do for yourself. Look for a person around you who needs a lifestyle advice. Pray to God to show a person, and you start teaching that other person lifestyle. And as you start teaching that person, you start following all that you are teaching. And let this journey be together with someone, because alone your failure rate is very high. At some point of time you will get fed up alone doing it, lose motivation, forget it, let me go have the food that you love to take, and all your plans and all the things goes haywire. So here I call this as an ambassador model. An ambassador model is when you become an ambassador to someone, then the accountability is larger on you, because the other person is depending on you, and you know that your success depends the success, on your success will depend the success for the other person. And so your motivation and your consistency in doing what you need to do really goes up. And so it's both vertical and it's horizontal. As you depend on God for what He wants you to do, this horizontal is a very strong component, that when you have someone dependent on you, you know, it will make you going, and you will be consistent, and most likely you will be able to succeed in your lifestyle commitment that you have started. So that is something that I wanted to add on, as I can see you all contemplating about and doing it. So have a partner, have a lifestyle partner, and do things together with God's help in prayer, and experience something that God teaches you, and let that become your story. And once you have a story, you share that story with others. People are touched by stories and not just by a collection of facts. And that is something I would like to share with you finally, because I think that speaks much louder and much stronger than just putting certain facts together.
Prayer, and then we'll show challenges, and then after that there will be thanksgiving, and then we will give you a gift. So it's prayer now, and then you can just sit.
So let's close today's sessions with a word of prayer. Let's pray. Our most gracious, loving Heavenly Father, we come before you, Lord, with a humble heart. We are quite human in our own perspective as we have gone life and as we experience in our own life. Some things we never understood, some things we were not able to do as much as we wanted to. Some things we started doing, but somewhere in the middle we kind of backslided. We are sometimes very discouraged, hopeful. Sometimes we are very distracted. There are other more important things to be addressed, and health becomes a lower down priority. And in all these things, we have maybe postponed it for a long period of time. But Lord, as you have spoken to us clearly, as you have shown that health is a way to reach out to people, Lord, we really want to do it. We want to experience it first within our own selves. We want you to help us to do the things that we have not been able to do it. As your word says that the will and to do comes from you, we want to claim you in our life, Lord, that you would become our rest today. You would become our food today. You will be our anchor. You will be our glorifier. You will be the power through which we are going to do the things that we have not been able to do. And this is not we are doing to do for ourselves, not for us to live long, live healthy, avoid diseases, but we are doing it, Lord, that your name would be glorified. And as we lift your names in our life, through our physical body, through our mental peace, through the social relationship with people, as we know them, as we trust them, as we serve them, Lord, in all these things we pray, Lord, that you would be lifted up in our lives, Lord. Because when people see you, you have said you will draw men to yourselves. Let that be a prayer for each one of us tonight, Lord, as we commit ourselves to you, that you will do the things that we have not been able to do it. You know us and you know us completely, Lord. Every aspect of our life is well known to you, Lord. And when you know us and when you work in us and when you work through us, Lord, things will be changed around us. May we commit ourselves and accept you as a Lord of our life, so that in our lives you will be lifted up, that you will be glorified, and we can see your kingdom enlarge before you come, Lord, that many would be ready to enter into your kingdom. We want to commit each and every soul who came here, who heard you, Lord, that may their life do not be the same from today onwards, and let them really experience you in a very personal way, in a very transformative way, Lord. With that prayers, I commit each one of us into your hand, for we ask this in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
We don't want you to leave right yet. You know that there were challenges, right? Did everyone hear about the challenges? Somebody completed the challenges. And so we want to show them right now. There were people from Creekside who completed challenges, and also people from Ras El Khaimah. So we want to be able to share that with you right now.
Hi, my name is Connie Bonsa and I am from Dubai Creekside Church, and I accepted the challenge to join for the World Health Day 2022. I joined a 3K walk for People and Planet at Expo 2020 Dubai with my 5-year-old daughter and with Sister Lorraine. We walked around Expo for 1 hour. We started around 7:30 and ended before 9 o'clock. That's why we enjoyed good sunlight and fresh air while walking around the expo. And they also provided enough supply of water to keep us hydrated during the walk. And after the walk, they provided us fruits and juice as early breakfast. May we be physically active every day so we will have a better version of our health. We can walk or run with our family and friends so we can enjoy it. And also we can have 30 minutes every day or 3 times a week to have a simple exercise for our body. I am praying for all of us to always be safe and healthy. Thank you and God bless.
To God be the glory. I want to thank everyone for making this World Health Day possible. A special thanks given to the media team for their work with us, and also with Sister Merrill, Gulf Field President, Pastor Dilip, RAC Pajero Church Board, Creekside team. Just want to thank everyone for your participation. And you've taken that first step. You know, knowledge is power, but next it is on us after we've soaked up all of this beautiful information, even from our doctor. Doctor, give him thanks for all of the information. And after we've soaked this up like a sponge, may it dwell in us and grow. Grow in our journey, seeds of wellness, grow in our journey so that we can share our gospel message with others. We have the message of hope. Thank you. Okay.
We thank Dr. Samuel George Hansdack for coming here and sharing these presentations with us, the 3 presentations. Now I would like to call upon the 2 other health ministries directors to come and present the gift. Where is Sister Myra? Here. So we will go up the podium and present a gift from Iraq, Fujairah, and Creekside to our doctor for the good work that he did. Thank you so much. Let's go up. Ladies first. Ladies first.